In the last lesson, we talked about how web requests work and what an API is and how it can be used to communicate and transfer information from apps and web pages, from servers to those. And in this lesson, I want to show you a very useful tool called Postman that helps you be able to make those API requests without actually needing an app built up, So instead of having to go through and actually build out all of the Alamo file or URL session or networking code in Xcode just to see the results, we can use a tool like Postman and make those API calls and be able to see the JSON results that we're going to be working with right here, all right? Now, this is a more or less optional lesson. You don't have to download Postman. You don't have to follow along in this lesson. This is just an extra tool to have in your tool belt in case you need to work with APIs in the future and you would like to be able to use something like this. Although I highly recommend following along and getting Postman. So if you haven't used Postman before, go ahead and just open up a browser and do a Google search for Postman API. And it'll be your first result here, Postman API Development Environment. So go ahead and click on that, and then just go ahead to download the app and choose your platform. I assume you're on a Mac, so go ahead and just download that and follow the installation instructions. It's super easy. All right, so once you have the app downloaded, go ahead and download the resources for this lesson. And you want this .json file right here, swappy.postmancollection.json, okay? And what that's going to do is that's going to get you this list of API requests that I've already created for you, but we are going to go over how to create your own as well. And the way to import that is I'm just going to go ahead and delete the one that I currently have here in Postman so I can show you how to import them. And all you got to do is come right up here where it says import. And then I'm going to drop that .json file right in here. And there we go. Now we have that collection back. All right, so let's do a quick tour of Postman. Over here on your left, you have collections, right? And collections is just a collection of API requests. And so you'll see here we have get person. And if I, let me close these ones that we have here. And I'll say, I don't think I have this one done. Oh, no, I do. That's fine. So I'm going to close it and don't save. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at get person. So if you recall from, let me go ahead and open up Swappy as well. Okay, so here we have the Swappy API. And we have this base URL plus people/1. And if I press request, this is the JSON data that we get back. Name, all that kind of stuff. And in Postman, if we do a get request and put in that same URL and then press send, you'll see here that we get the same data. And then we also have endpoints for vehicles. I'll press send, and planets, send. And right now these each have a specific one listed. So this number 1 is Luke, but you can get rid of that that last number and press return, and you'll see here that now we get a whole list of persons. Okay, so let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Now you'll notice that we have a couple of JSON objects. We have this first JSON object, which holds information about how many person objects are inside of this endpoint API/people. So there's 87 characters. The next has a URL that will take us to the next group of characters. You'll notice that we don't have all 87 in this single request. Looks like we may have like maybe 10 to 15 or so. And if you want to retrieve more, then you would actually need to go to this next URL, page 2. And then you'll see here we have results. And inside of results, inside of this key, if you recall, I said that with JSON you have key value pairs, and the key is always a string. The value can be a number of things. Here we have a few. We have an integer here, a string, null, and here we have an array of JSON objects, okay? So this right here, this JSON object is what is returned when we actually do just API/people/1. Okay. So that's the JSON object that is returned from this endpoint, which is a subset of this results JSON object. All right, so that's pretty cool. All right, let's say you want to create a new GET request. So for instance, you would just click on the plus sign up here. You would choose which method you want to get. In the last lesson, we talked about get, post, put, and delete. And I did say that there were more, right? So you have all of these different types of methods, but these are the 4 that you'll use the most often. And let's go ahead and get a different API endpoint. Let's do species. Okay, so if I do, let's see, I'm just going to copy this, come back to Postman, and put in the URL, and then do species after that, and press send. And you'll see here we have all of these different species here. What do we have here? We got the huts. Yoda's species is just the name of that one. I don't know how to say that, Trandoshan. But yeah, so here we have the species. And if we do a number at the end, we are specifying which of these results that we want. So I'm going to say send, and there we have human, and then some information about that species. And if you want to save this request, just come over here and say save, and we can give it a name. So I'm going to call this get species, and then we can save it to a collection. So I'm going to save it to Swappy and say save to Swappy. Optionally, you can also give it a request description. All right, there we go. So now you'll see this one show up here. All right, so what are the benefits of using Postman over just going to the Swappy website? Well, not all APIs have something like this where you can just input the endpoint and be able to nicely see the JSON. Another of the big reasons is that lots of times you'll need to do post requests, in which case you can't just do that in a browser URL. And when you do a post, you are attaching information to the request. And so here you'll see if we have a post, we have something called headers and a body. And with a body, we would usually do raw, and then we would include a JSON object. So a common thing is to do a post request with login information. So we'll just do a little JSON object here. We would say something like open curly brace, and then we would have email, and then you would have so this is the key, and this would be the value. So johnny@johnny.com, and then, you need a comma there. And this is just for demonstration purposes. You don't need to follow along. This is just to kind of show you what it would be like. And then a password, that would be the key, and then the value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you would close that little JSON object there. And this would be passed as part of the body to the API on the server, and it would do some validation, make sure this was a valid email perhaps, and then it would use this information to maybe create a new user or log in the user. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And yeah, that's the basics of Postman. This isn't meant to be a deep dive into what Postman can do, but just kind of a quick way to go ahead and access certain APIs through their endpoints that you can put in right here. I'm going to change this back to a get and say send again. Make sure that's still working right. All right, cool. Yeah, so go ahead and download the assets for this lesson, get this .json file, import it into Postman. If you like. I mean, this is an optional lesson. You don't have to use Postman. Just wanted to get it on your radar in case you wanted to use it. All right. So hope you find this useful, and I'll see you all in the next one.